Hello, I'm Andrew Hales. Welcome to another edition of Chatting With. Today I am here with Rob.
Yeah.
You're an ex-gambling addict?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're always still gambling addicts, but I'm in recovery for a gambling addiction. Yeah.
All right. How bad did it get? I mean, when did you define it as a problem?
Yeah. So if I was honest with myself, I probably knew it was a problem from a couple weeks in, but I started gambling when I was 18 years old with like daily fantasy sports contests. So for people that don't know, that's basically you're taking a fantasy football season and condensing it into one night. You're picking a team, given a budget, and you try to win prizes against other lineups. It wasn't long before I started sports betting because I wanted the thrill, the action faster. That would spiral into every kind of gambling you could imagine, where over a 6 year period, I found myself from when I was 18 to 24 in debt to the point where I had to get a second job to pay it down 6 different times. You would think it might have taken one time to logically think that maybe it was a problem, but I kept telling myself, I'll figure this out. I'm just not there yet. I'm not a good gambler yet, but one day I will be. And I kept pushing on for way too long before it hit a rock bottom point where in one day, one 12-hour session at a casino, I created 6 months worth of debt to work 70 hours a week to pay it off.
Damn. What was your job then?
Sure. So the final time that it happened, I was an adult. So I was 24 and I was working full time as a financial analyst at a hospital. And I was also bartending. So I was working 70 hours. But over the 6 year period, I had all kinds of jobs. And whatever I was working, I always felt like I was behind all my friends. Like I was working at an ice cream place when my friends were starting to work at office buildings. Then when I was working at an office building, they seemed to be moving on to the next level. So I always kind of convinced myself that I was behind.
What's the most you've ever lost in one
So
time?
yeah, so I get this question all the time. It's what everyone wants to know, especially when
Yeah.
they aren't necessarily gamblers themselves. Um, and I get it, right? It's something that's interesting. It kind of brings perspective into the situation. But
It's
I,
juicy.
yeah, it is juicy. But I did this when I was active in my gambling, and I hate to think someone else might do it now. If I share the amounts of money that I won or lost, it becomes a game of comparison. And someone that is, going through terrible gambling addiction, but say they only lost half of the amount that I say I lost, they're going to justify it by saying, he's twice as bad as me. He's a gambling addict. I'm not there yet. I can keep going. And if I ever get that bad, then I'll stop. So sorry, I wasn't able to give you a direct answer, but there was 6 times over that 6 year period where I was clawing my way out of debt with a second job. And to be in those positions as a full time student, as an 18-year-old who's just trying to find my footing in life, I always felt like I was behind. And I hope that answer is okay.
Yeah, no, that was a great answer. Did your parents know or anyone?
Yeah, people around me knew that I was hooked to gambling. They knew I was going into debt because of gambling. But one thing a compulsive gambler is without failure is a compulsive liar. And so I'd be able to kind of sugarcoat any situation, make it seem like it wasn't as bad as it actually was, and say I needed money and I had to come up with money on a short notice. I could tell some lies like I need money for groceries. I stopped gambling. Don't worry. Like this is for rent, and always it would end up going to the same place. Uh,
Hmm.
but always the intention again. It wasn't that I wanted to lie or I took pleasure in lying. It was once I win, I can solve all these problems. But then I'd win and I'd just want to win again. And I'd forget about the logical thinking, the paying people back, the telling the truth. It was all just a lie I told myself to keep going.
Man, you're 6 years into it. What was the moment you realized, well, like, what was rock bottom that you realized, all right, I need to stop?
Yeah, it was that 12-hour session. I went to a casino. I had moved from Jersey to Philadelphia to live with some friends, and 8 months had gone by. Life was, boring, but it was okay. There wasn't any real problems. And then I realized, I'm like, I did what's called a self exclusion in New Jersey. So I banned myself from the Jersey casinos the first time I tried to quit gambling, but I never did it for Pennsylvania. And once I realized that I had the capacity, the ability to gamble, it wasn't long before I found myself in the casino. I was placing a sports bet in the morning that spiraled into 3 cash advances at the window because kind of I'm sure we'll dive into it a little more, but the way I was measuring my success in life was the number of days since my last bet. And once it had been just a couple of minutes since my last bet, I was kind of let loose. And I thought, well, I'm not sitting on 3 months clean. I'm sitting on 3 minutes clean. I might as well make another bet and start tomorrow, which turned into a very long day.
After that day, then what happened? You were like, all right, I need therapy. I'm going to. What'd you do?
Yeah, so I got myself back into the meetings. So it's the 12-step support group. People will know what it is. I'm sure if not, then they'll know it from TV episodes where you see people sitting around in a circle talking about their problems. I was going to them before, but one thing that was really missing from my life was a purpose. I always had this dream that, I'd find my purpose magically. It would just kind of fall into my lap and I'd figure out what I loved to do. And that never really seemed to happen. But I got back into those meetings, and a couple weeks goes by. I'm still struggling, but someone who's at that meeting that's pretty close to my age, he's about 10 years older than me, he stopped showing up. And I said, I gave him a call and I said, hey, what's going on? Why didn't you show up? He had been through a bad situation, went back to gambling to kind of cope with the stress that was in his life. And I said, listen, man, I don't know what the solution is, but I know it's not that because I just did that. And now I'm digging myself out of a hole working 70 hours a week at a job I hate. Come back to the meetings and give this another try. And he did. And actually, just a little while ago, he picked up his 1 year clean. He had a couple more ups and downs, but he picked up his 1 year clean. And it was the first time that I felt like something I said made a difference for someone other than myself in a very long time. And I thought that I could replicate it. And so I started posting videos about my story online. And here we are talking to each other now, a year and a half later.
Is it more difficult to watch sports now because you're like, oh, I could have bet that or whatever?
To an extent, it's more difficult to watch sports now, but it's not so much because of temptations. It's because I find them to be pretty boring without the money on them. I'm not sitting
Hmm.
thinking, man, I would have bet this because I know that even if I won the bet, I'd eventually have lost it back anyway, and it wouldn't matter. But if
Yeah.
I'm watching a game I don't care about, there's not much in it for me.
You think gambling should be illegal?
I don't think gambling needs to be illegal. What I think needs to be illegal is the way that gambling is marketed. So if you watch a commercial for the stock market or like any kind of thing that you can invest in, there's a giant disclaimer at the bottom that says you might lose all your money. Paraphrasing, but it says basically that. When you look at a gambling commercial, it says call us if you have a problem. There's no implication that you can lose anything by gambling. It's just supposed to be something that everyone knows. And while it logically makes sense, it sends the message that you're weird if you have a problem, you're abnormal if you have a problem, and calling is kind of a sign of admitting defeat, which creates a dangerous cycle where people will keep doing something that they know isn't really good for them.
Yeah. So change the marketing.
Just make the
Um,
marketing more honest. I mean, even just
how would
saying,
how would you make it more honest?
yeah, and it's a tough situation because the very group that would need to change is the one that would have their profit line hurt by changing. But the way I'd make the marketing more honest is to make them admit that you can lose money gambling. You'll look at a commercial and it'll say something that'll be to the extent of sign up and be the next big winner. The game is more fun when you win too. These are things that casinos are saying. The game's more fun when you win too. Disclaimer, you might not win. It's that simple in my opinion. And it doesn't feel like it would make a big change. But to people who are just beginning gambling, which is the group of people that you can really help to not get addicted, it's a reminder that they need to instill in their minds.
You talk about this thrill you get. Yeah. Have you what have you replaced? Have you I mean, they say you have to replace that thrill when you're overcoming an addiction.
Mm.
Have you replaced that thrill with anything?
So I think that trying to replace the thrill, like one for one, is going to lead you to get another addiction. Um, so I know a lot of people that quit alcohol, they end up turning towards things like gambling to try to supplement that thrill. And so when I quit, I was actually really cautious of that. because knowing that I have an addiction to gambling, who's to say I couldn't get addicted to smoking or addicted to drinking? Um, and the end result of that is that you have this giant gap of time where you're really bored and life feels really stale. But the good news is that as time goes on, your brain actually does heal itself. So I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist, but I work with a lot of them now, and I get a lot of information on this. As you gamble, pathways physically develop in your brain to trigger and feel pleasure when you go and place a bet. And as you stop gambling, those pathways will heal themselves and you'll be able to find pleasure in smaller things again. But it's never going to be fully healed, right? Like I can't go and start gardening and get like a real thrill out of that. But I can go and start gardening now and it won't make me want to, bash my head through a wall, I guess. It's a process.
Right. I mean, like for me, with quitting drinking, I something that's helped is running,
Mm.
exercise. That releases endorphins and dopamine, whatever. Cold plunges. Have you gotten into any of that?
Yeah, absolutely. I've tried to do a lot of hot yoga. I don't know if you've given that a try yet, but I'm
Yeah,
loving
I
that.
did that. I did that a couple times. Yeah,
Yeah. How'd you like it?
it's cool. You, you just you kind of melt in there for an hour. Is that what you
Yep,
do?
pretty
Yeah,
much.
and it's
But
supposed to sweat out the toxins or whatever.
yeah, I've done the cold plunges as well. I've done a lot more cold showers than I have cold plunges, but I see the
Yeah,
benefit, especially from like the physical benefits of just, you know, recovery.
yeah. You go to the gym every day?
I try to either go to the gym or hit yoga, and I got this tracker so that I could start tracking steps in my sleep. I'm trying to
Hmm.
get that 5 miles a day, and I would love 8 hours, but it just doesn't seem to happen.
Do you have any other bad habits that you're trying to break right now?
I think I'm addicted to stress. I
Stress.
feel stress. Um,
Wow.
I feel weird and just kind of uneasy when I take time to slow down or sit with myself. Um, I feel like I was so used to things going wrong constantly in my life as a result of the gambling, going into debt, lying to people about it, hiding it from people, that I was living in such a high stress environment that not having that, feel like I'm expecting things to go wrong. And so I feel like I invite stress into my life because I became comfortable with that kind of lifestyle.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like it's almost like in your 20s, at least for me, I liked the sabotage of like ruining things almost, or like the roller coaster of emotion that comes with alcohol and the hangover, and you're like, oh, and it's almost like that. It's like a roller coaster ride, and um,
You get
so
used to
that
it.
can be like its own thing that you like kind of like doing.
Yeah.
But have you tried meditation?
Yeah, I have. I try to
It's
do it
like the
every
most,
day.
yeah, like everyone. I feel like everyone talks about it, but no one does it.
That's fair. I try to do it
I don't
every
know.
day, but I feel like I fall asleep a lot when I do it because I do it in the morning.
You do
And
you
then
lay
when
do you
I
lay horizontal?
sometimes, yeah,
Yeah.
should be an easy fix to sit up, but sometimes you struggle to find the motivation, I guess. But I do it,
Yeah.
and I love the intention of it. I love the idea of it. I still struggle to slow myself down.
Support groups. Are there people that have like lost that you've met that have like lost their houses and all that?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
unfortunately.
crazy.
Yeah, I've seen people that have lost friendships, relationships, all the way to marriages, kids, entire houses, cars, possessions. People will lose everything, and it's hard to kind of conceptualize as someone that's not, experienced it. But when you're that deep into a gambling addiction, you see all these things that you're giving up, but your mindset is that you'll get them all back. Like, not a lot of people who are addicted to gambling and lose, say, their wife will have the intention of, I want to lose my wife. Like, that's not what the thought is. The thought is, my wife's mad at me because I'm missing X, Y, and Z parts of our life. If I have a big win and I drive up in a Lamborghini and I put her in the car, she'll love me again. And so we kind of delude ourselves into thinking our gambling will be the solution for all the problems we're causing.
Yeah, you mentioned relationships ruined in your college years. What's an example? Like you borrowed money from someone and you never paid them back, or
Honest to God, yes or 2 days ago, I remembered I owed a kid money from college, and I paid him back. It was $150. I sent him a Venmo, and, it was
wow.
what? Like 2 years now since I tried starting my recovery. It came into my mind, and step 4 of the 12 steps is to, or rather,
Yeah, I've
step
heard that
6
where
of the
you
12 steps is to make amends with,
right.
people that you've wronged. But, relationships, it was friendships like that, but it was also, like, romantic relationships where it's not like they ended because she was like, "Ew, you're a gambler." But when you're addicted to gambling, everything else kinda takes a back seat when things are in crisis mode. So if you are addicted to gambling and you're going through a period of, losing bets, you're not gonna care that your girlfriend had a bad day at school. You're gonna be thinking, "How am I gonna get this money to cover this overdraft so I don't get more fees?" You're kind of misplacing your priorities when you're addicted to gambling, and it can lead to wives leaving people. It can lead to husbands leaving people. It can lead to a lot of pain.
Is it possible to bet with credit cards?
Unfortunately, yes. Not always is it a direct payment via credit card, but I've now seen gas stations carrying gift cards for sports books, and you can purchase them with credit cards. You can also take a cash advance, like I did the last day I gambled, and you can gamble on credit very easily, even if it's not a one step situation. Maybe it's two steps.
Okay, so you say like 2 weeks in to your first bet when you were 18, you were like, "Oh, I have a problem with this," but it just kept spiraling, and you said like 6 times you would make it all back, and then go down the rabbit hole and make it all back. Is that right?
Yeah, that's fair.
Um, why do you think you'll be successful this time?
Yeah. Well, a
It's
gambling
probably a
addiction.
rude question, but
No,
I
it's
don't
not. It's
know.
not at all. A gambling addiction is the only addiction where you can justify doing more of it to solve the problems that you caused. Someone who's struggling with alcohol wouldn't think if I drink this 30 pack of Bud Light, it will solve all my problems. But someone who's struggling with a gambling problem might think all I need is a jackpot and I can pay everyone off. I can get myself out of this hole. And so, this kind of mental reset of getting to a point where I wasn't in debt anymore, it felt like freedom to go back and gamble without any kind of risk, or not risk, rather, that's a bad word, any kind of, repercussions.
It was a fresh start, right?
Exactly, and it was just, doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. It was insane, but it's what gambling addicts do.
I mean, yeah, I think I disagree with the alcohol thing though. Some people they drink to just take away the hangover, and so it
Oh,
just it's a spiral, and they keep drinking. It's a binge, but it's for a
sure.
different reason. But
That's
it's
still a
like,
good point to bring up, though.
what would you say is the most addictive game? Are there games that are more addictive than others?
So I think that there's games that are designed to be addictive when you look at the casino, like slot machines. They're designed specifically with different like psychological hacks in the game. So one, for example, is called the near miss fallacy. Basically, if you're looking at a slot machine and it's three reels, right? It's 777 would be the jackpot. It would say 7 7, and then just off it'd be the seven. So it's one space off. That actually triggers a process in our brains almost similar to hitting the jackpot. So it convinces your brain it's coming. You're almost there. Keep digging, keep going. And that's actually programmed into all the slot machines as far as I know. So they're designed to be addictive, but I think you're going to lose the most money wherever you play the most. And some people, like young men specifically, are going to lose it all in sports.
Hmm. Do you think the rise of all these sports betting apps is it's a I mean, do you feel like they should be that policies should be put in place for them?
I had this conversation with a friend of mine who's in the gambling advocacy space, and he wants to see it all stripped, like all of it made illegal. And he has arguments as to why that would be a good thing for society. I've always been someone who doesn't like being told what to do. And so I think that mindset carries over into politics for me. And the idea that we would tell a business that it can't do something, even if it's causing a lot of damage, I have a hard time seeing it actually work or actually be regulated. Regulating it would make a huge difference. And by regulating, I mean handling the advertising, making them run background checks on players, making sure they're not overspending, getting rid of credit within the casino, getting rid of the ability to gamble money you don't have. But I struggle to see it happening. I would love to see it happen, but I think that over the next 8 years, 10 years, we're going to see a wave of addiction hitting America like we've never seen before.
What advice would you have for someone that's kind of at a very low point in their addiction to gambling?
That there's no shame in asking for help. As a gambling addict, I can tell you I had a huge inflated ego. I thought I could do everything myself, that I was the shit, that I would figure it all out, and no one could tell me anything. The very second that I admitted that someone else could help me is when I began to recover and began to rebuild my life. Uh, so get
Who did you?
uncomfortable. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, who did you ask for help?
I was a therapist at first, and then it was the support group meetings. And the support group meetings was really where it clicked for me. I was just admitting that I wasn't the only person with a problem, and that things that worked for someone else might actually work for me. Getting uncomfortable with being uncomfortable, because if you're going to keep going back and doing the same thing, you're going to get the same result.
Do you still go to therapy?
I don't at this time go to therapy. I actually had an issue with it because
Was it
my
like just
therapist.
for depression and anxiety and stuff?
That was the problem. I was depressed and anxious because I was gambling and losing all my money. But the way that we were going about treating it was to kind of focus on the depression and anxiety rather than the gambling. And so, for my purposes, it didn't really work. I mean, you can't really begin to rebuild the house if the house is on fire. So, for me,
Right.
I had to stop gambling before I worked on it. And that's why I ended up going to the meetings, the GA meetings. And that's really where things turned around.
What do you think about slot streamers or gambling promoters?
I'm a positive person, I think. And so I like to believe that slot streamers and casino promoters don't know how much damage they're actually doing. But I think that they are particularly some of the people that are causing the most damage, because the younger you start gambling, the more likely it is you develop a gambling addiction. And the target market, target demographic for a lot of the streamers, 16 to 25-year-old men. And
Yeah.
that's really the most susceptible group to get addicted to gambling at a young age.
Um, what do they? I've never seen that before. Do they just put their phone by the slot machine and they go?
That's if they're in person, but a lot of them like will stream as if they're like Twitch streamers. Instead of showing a video game, they'll be at an online casino.
Wow.
Yeah, and the problem is
Eh,
they usually get paid by the casino, and they're given the funds, but they're gambling crazy amounts of money. So a viewer is seeing this crazy dream lifestyle that they want to emulate, they want to aspire to, when in reality it's the casino's money being bet in the casino. And the way the streamers make money is by getting you to sign up and getting paid a percentage of your losses.
So, what's your main goal with the with your YouTube channel and your presence online?
There's a selfish goal and an unselfish goal. The selfish goal is that as I create this content and I constantly remind myself of the negatives of gambling, it helps me stay clean. Making videos about this, people always ask me, like, man, doesn't talking about gambling every day make you want to gamble? And I'm like, well, no, because I'm talking about how gambling cost me a relationship, a friendship. It destroyed my college years. So part of making the content keeps me on the right path. The other part is that, similar to how there's not really any books about gambling addiction, there's not a lot of people that talk about it at all outside of these meetings. And so when I first was thinking, like, man, I think I have a problem, I looked and no one else seemed to have a problem. So, what I want to do is I want to serve as a reminder to people that it can go badly if you let it go too far. And that if it has gone too far, you're not the only person with this problem. I went through it. Here's what I did. And it kind of lay out the groundwork for them.
Hmm. Well, um, thank you for talking to me. Any last words?
Yeah, I mean, to anyone out there who's either just getting started in gambling or they've been gambling for a while and things really haven't gone poorly yet, just know that not everyone gets addicted to gambling, but anyone can develop a problem. If it stops being fun for you, it should be done for you. Because gambling was meant as entertainment, it wasn't meant to supplement your income or retire you. So just be safe.
Hell yeah. Um, oh yeah, another side question. Well, have you met anyone that makes a living from gambling successfully,
I've met
consistently?
I haven't met anyone that makes a living from actually gambling. I've met people that make a living from selling picks and pretending to be a professional gambler.
Do you consider those people con men?
Yes. I think that they're a great case study on how solid marketing can make the internet think whatever you want. And they show fancy cars, stacks of cash. They show their winning bets, and to anyone who's not aware of the reality, it looks like a dream.
It's like exactly like the stock trading
Yep.
sphere. Yeah, man. Did you ever get into stocks?
Yep. I did a lot of short-dated options trades that were basically simulating coin flips. So,
Okay. Yeah,
yeah.
like day trading and stuff.
More beyond that, to be honest, it wasn't just like day trading, reading charts. It was like waiting for a Federal Reserve meeting so that I could put in an options play 15 minutes before the meeting and wait to see a big swing in the market when everyone's freaking out trying to figure out the interest rate. It was that bad.
uh, that's funny. Um, you don't do that anymore, or do you consider that part of the addiction?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was something that during the early recovery I tried to justify as like investing. And then when I realized I was feeling the same way, I was like, yeah, this is just gambling.
Tight. Um, all right. Well, cool. Thank you so much for being here. Let us know what you think about gambling, any stories you have, experiences, friends. Let us know in the comments. And check out Rob's channel, Rob Dodat.
Rob
I'll have the
Odat,
link,
yes.
Rob Odat, in the link in the description. Check out his stuff. Thanks for being here, man.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Um, cool. I'll stop right now.